Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Holy jumped up ball-headed Jesus Palomino.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
Hey, how about those swinging new tunes from Chris Reed, aka Sirago17, that opened the show? I really like this new piece, and hopefully it works as background. Hello, and welcome to Wake Up Heavy Recollections of Horror, the Stephen King series wrap-up episode. I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible without rushing too much. I just wanted to go over some favorites, favorite movies, favorite books, and some of the more modern adaptations that I have not yet hit upon, and even going back to the 1990s forward, because there are a number of movies that I did not talk about, and there are multiple reasons for that, and we'll get into all of that on this episode. I just realized that this little series of mine spanned 4 months from August to November, so I didn't mean for it to go on quite that long, but I was having fun with it, so what the heck. I had struggled with what to do as a wrap-up, and even though I had it in the back of my head to kind of do a best of or favorites, I shouldn't say best of because this is all subjective, but I thought, well, you kind of stopped reading King in the early 90s and really stopped watching religiously the movies around the same time. And there's a lot of gaps in there, especially with the books themselves. But then I figured, what the hell, I'll just do the ones that I've read and kind of narrow it down to a top 5 for the novels, and then I'll throw in the collections as well in order, and top 10 for movies, and then I'll discuss some of those more recent films that I think are worth a look. So, top 5 novels of the King books that I've read. Salem's Lot at number 5, The Dead Zone at number 4, The Shining at number 3, The Talisman at number 2, and Pet Sematary as the top. And if I were to expand the list and include something recent that I read, I would probably squeeze Dr. Sleep in there between Salem's Lot and The Dead Zone. I really did enjoy that book, but I think I would have to read it a second time to know exactly where it fit in amongst favorites. Now, all of the books that I read as a kid, I liked. I can't think of something that I wouldn't read again if asked to do so. Firestarter is kind of low on the list. I think I've read it enough now, twice. And I did, like I said, when I discussed that movie and the book itself, that I really got a lot more out of it the second time, but it's not something that I need to sit through again. As far as collections go, I would have to put them in this order: Different Seasons, Night Shift, and the Bachman books, which I guess you could argue should be in the novels or should be something completely separate since it was written under a pseudonym. I'm throwing it in as a collection because that is how I read it. And, I devoted a whole episode to it, so it really made an impression on me, much like The Talisman did. And that's probably why that is so high on my list as opposed to, say, The Shining or The Dead Zone being in that second spot. This is all based on, how these books hit me and affected me. And as I've mentioned, of course I'm backtracking now, but with Pet Sematary, that was the book that kind of brought back some of that darker horror from King. And with the Bachman books, it was all new stuff, things that I hadn't heard anything about, and got to dive into 4 new works all at once. And so that left, again, a big impression and why I'd top it out on my collections list. And I have also mentioned that those are the things that I bought to catch up on a few years ago, all the short story collections that I'd missed because I figured they'd be easier to get through. Pretty sure I've only made it through Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and I don't think I would put it super high. There's a lot of stories in there, and a lot of them are really good. It's just a different kind of style. I like the old, clunky Stephen King that was writing for men's magazines, those stories from Night Shift and things like that. So don't want to say that they're too polished, but there's just something not quite as primal in those stories for me. In the newer collections, that is. And just a note on reading these books in general and why, unfortunately, I don't read as much as I would like to these days. I get so relaxed when I'm reading that I fall asleep after about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm working my way through Dance Macabre right now, and man, it's really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. But if I'm sitting there and I start reading, I just doze right off. That's just what happens to me at my age when I sit down to read. So of the movies that I discussed, and this list pretty much consists of just the movies that I talked about on these separate episodes. For the anthology films, I would put them in this order: Cat's Eye at number 3, Creepshow 2 at number 2, and Creepshow the original at number 1. I didn't include Tales from the Dark Side because that only includes one Stephen King story. So for the films that I discussed, and these are feature films from either stories or novels, starting with number 10, Firestarter. Next would be Children of the Corn. After that would be the original Pet Sematary, then Silver Bullet, and next would be Cujo. After that, we have Brian De Palma's Carrie, then Misery, Christine, Stand By Me, and at number 2, The Shining, and number 1 I gave to The Dead Zone.
The ice is gonna break!
You've got King times Cronenberg plus a melancholy Christopher Walken, and it is just a recipe for greatness. You may be asking yourself, well, what about the Frank Darabont films? And I didn't include those because they are so ubiquitous. I don't know how many times I've seen both of those movies. They are good movies, but they're not horror films per se. Of course, Stand By Me isn't really either. But that was that period where the books and movies had kind of caught up. Most of the 70s and 80s books had been adapted by that time. So in the 90s, we're digging into short stories and novellas, as well as the Bachman books and other works that I really hadn't read at the time. But I thought I would throw in a couple of films from each decade since the 1990s that I have seen and enjoyed to a certain extent, including The Dark Half, which teamed up George A. Romero and Stephen King again. And this is basically the Richard Bachman story. This is all about an author who has a pseudonym. It gets discovered. He kills off the pseudonym, much like King did. But the pseudonym doesn't want to die, comes back and terrorizes the author and people surrounding him. Needful Things is another fairly decent adaptation from the 90s with Ed Harris, who of course had been in Creepshow. And I think I kind of touched on Apt Pupil when I talked about different seasons, so I won't go into that too much. It's worth a look if you can handle the controversy surrounding it and its director. Other than that, there isn't much else from the 90s other than the Darabont films that I have enjoyed, and that even includes the thinner adaptation. Now, when we get into the 2000s, I really didn't see any of these until years after they released. The couple that I would give a slight recommendation to are Dreamcatcher, just because it's really, really weird. I had never read that book, didn't know anything about it, was on a Stephen King kick. It was streaming somewhere, so I watched it. It's weird. I don't know how faithful it is to the novel, but it's basically about a poop monster, so take that into consideration when you watch it. And then Secret Window, it's sort of similar to The Dark Half. We have an author again dealing with, now it's not a pseudonym, I don't want to give it away, but not the best. It's kind of interesting. We have a very strange performance from John Turturro, and Johnny Depp stars. And it co-stars Timothy Hutton, coincidentally enough, who was the lead in The Dark Half. I can give a slight recommendation to Riding the Bullet. It's from Mick Garris, and I think I read the story and stumbled upon the adaptation very close together and remember enjoying it to a certain extent. I haven't rewatched it, and it's one I've been meaning to catch again. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. And then Darabont's third and final King adaptation, The Mist, came out in the 2000s. I don't think I like it as much as a lot of other King fans, but I give them credit for going balls out with the ending, which is different from the novella, definitely dark. For the 2010s, we get some, not remakes, but readaptations like Carrie, which is not very good. And then It, of course, and Pet Sematary, which I just watched before doing this because I thought I need to have something other than a Netflix film from the last few years, and It, of course, which I talked about on that episode. And so we had some coupons from Comcast because of a billing error. I was tired of waiting for Pet Sematary to stream somewhere, so I went ahead and quote-unquote rented it. And I'm happy to say that I enjoyed it. This was a movie that I was very much looking forward to because of the directors who did Starry Eyes, which I'm sure I've mentioned at some point. And I heard it went pretty dark, which I think is the thing that's missing from the original version that kind of keeps it lower on my list. It is different from the book. It is different from the first adaptation, and I really enjoyed the major change that they made, which was kind of spoiled in the trailers, which got everybody up in arms. I also really liked that things were streamlined a bit. We ditch most of the subplot with Rachel's parents not liking Lewis. Judd's story is streamlined a bit. But we do get the obligatory
sometimes dead is better.
And I really do like that the kids' roles are pretty much reversed in this, and it makes a little more sense for a movie, and I think that's where the original struggles some. There are some nice subtle nods to the book and the original that make you think it's going in the same direction. Of course, if you saw the trailer, you know it doesn't. but I'm really happy that we didn't have a CGI baby or a cute little kid that just can't quite pull off super creepy. And I do have to give credit to the young actress who plays Ellie in this movie. She does a much, much better job than the young lady in Mary Herron's original. Oh yeah, and the new version of Church is much creepier as well. So I would definitely give this one a recommendation. I plan on watching it again before our rental time expires sometime in the next couple of days here. I appreciate how dark this one goes. The end is much darker than the original film or the book by a good couple of degrees. And I don't think that's unwarranted or unearned, so I gotta give them props for going there. I remember seeing a lot of really positive feedback when this was playing festivals, and then when it went wide, that feedback started getting a lot less positive, and I guess it has a fairly low score on Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't pay any attention to, and I'm a little bit surprised by that. I think it just went a little too dark for most people. But I am giving that a recommendation here, as well as In the Tall Grass, which is on Netflix, and of course Gerald's Game, which is also on Netflix, and that was by Mike Flanagan, whose Dr. Sleep is coming out this week. If I knew that I was going to see it right when it came out, I would have waited to do this wrap up, but I don't even know if I'll be able to get to it in the theater, so that's why I watched Pet Sematary today, to have something other than a Netflix film to recommend for a 2010s adaptation. So check out Pet Sematary. And after you do, check out Starry Eyes, because I will always plug that film. And I considered doing a worst of list, and that's just not the kind of guy I am, so I'm not going to bother with that. I mean, some of the duds that I've seen are The Mangler, Cell, which was more recent. There've been John Cusack's been in a couple of adaptations. 1408 is actually pretty interesting. If you can track it down, it was on Netflix for a long time, and I don't know if it's streaming anywhere now. I'm trying to think of something else really awful, even though I just said I wasn't going to do that. Oh, The Lawnmower Man, which I talked about. I think The Mangler is probably the worst. Graveyard Shift is okay. So anyway, watch what you want. If you're get into Stephen King, or you are getting back into Stephen King, watch whatever you can get your hands on. There's usually something entertaining in each of his adaptations. All right, I think that is it. I wanted to keep this super brief, and I think I've done that. I'm not going to do heavy watch lists this episode, and I don't have any new heavy horror tales to relay, so write those in, people. And I will save the heavy watch list for the next Why Do I Hate Slashers I Don't Actually episode, which will be on Friday the 13th, the final chapter. I was going to put a poll up, but on Halloween I watched some classics, and I watched the first Friday the 13th, and that got me in the mood to go ahead and watch my favorite of the franchise, and I will do an episode on that, either to come out at the end of this week or early next week. Thank you so much for listening. Go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review to Wake Up Heavy, Recollections of Horror. And don't forget,
Anything can happen when you wake up heavy.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.